the rule was primarily designed for the play at center. It was too heavy, and fouls were not being called because it was too big of an advantage. So, yes, sir.
Now you say that you want to slow them down a little bit. What if you start to signal and they immediately put the ball in?
Free throw improperly taken must be retaken. So you can put it back, no, you gotta wait for me. The question was, if we're trying to, I'm not really comfortable with slowing down, but if we're initiating this new mechanics on an exclusion away from the ball, and the player gets anxious and makes that pass prior to me as the referee saying they're ready, that's just an improperly taken free throw. It goes back to the spot where the ball was and they retake the free throw.
Just to differentiate the exclusion at center when the ball's there or when the ball's not, so you said that if the ball is there, try to make the signal that's required, or if it's faster, get the ball back in play.
See if this makes sense. If we can summarize, if the exclusion is at the ball, we still need to be very, very careful that the proper player goes out, that everybody in the pool knows who is excluded and the table and then play on. But I think just by the nature of where the ball is in the foul, that process is going to come a little quicker, that we're not going to be forced to slow it down so much. And it's going to change. It's going to be open to interpretation as we go.
What you're saying in that situation, the center drew the exclusion, has the ball, he or she must wait.
No.
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 Well,
You're saying
if the
no.
center has the ball, I'm going to take up.
Yeah.
You can still have a quick at center if the ball was at the center when the foul was called. You just cannot have a quick away from the ball at the center or anywhere inside 5. The referee has to determine
Yeah,
that everyone's covered up.
that is my interpretation.
So
Yes.
nothing changing if it's at the ball.
Correct.
Okay.
The other question that I
That
had,
was made very clear, because that is not what you were discussing last weekend. At all.
the other question that's been
All I
asked
said
is,
was 4 steps, we got confused.
Now,
There's those 4 steps, according to the rules, there's 4 steps, he said.
There's only 3 steps, I'm looking at the rules right now.
Boom.
next question, please.
let me tell you, please, let's not get too hung up on the specifics of the rule. We've all been familiar with these rule books long enough to know that there are contradictions from page to page. Maybe the language written in Spain between a bunch of people speaking 15 different languages and now translated into English, maybe we missed some interpretation. Maybe we missed some specifics in that. And so we will see numerous updates and directions to referees for every major tournament for the next year, I guarantee it. And we will, through our website, inform you of those updates as they become available to us. You got to know that right now, with the exception of Amber and Steve, who have actually refereed international competition, this is speculation for us. We're basing the information on those that have applied the procedures and our conversations with national team coaches and players. Is it going to change? If you walk out here now and you go to Cap 7 and Winterfest this weekend and apply what we talked about here, as long as you're consistent, cool. If we find out in a month that this procedure applies to every exclusion inside the 5, with the ball, without the ball, then we will adjust accordingly. But for now, let's follow the guidelines of away from the ball, especially at center, and making sure that that defender clears out. If the defense is smart enough to cover up, then we put the ball in play.
The way that we were told back in December that all exclusions in the 5, like this weekend, should just tell all the coaches, like if it's the ball's at the foul, then you don't have to wait as long.
I think again, at the ball, if the exclusion is at the ball, I'm going to still make sure that the right player knows they're excluded, and then we play.
You're not going to signal stop.
No.
One question I've had is, you call the exclusion away from the ball at the center position, ball's on the 2 spot. Can the team swing the ball to the 4 spot in line with where the 2 players are at? They haven't gained an advantage as far as coming closer to the goal, but they have moved the ball while the ball is deemed dead. that currently is allowed. There's nothing that says that the offense can't move the ball. The referee has to deem the ball eventually live, but I've seen it happen where exclusion happens at the center. The offense is going to attack right away. They move the ball. They don't go closer to the goal, but they move it to the opposite side of the pool. Referee looks up, now finds the ball, now puts the ball back live. There's nothing that says it has to be frozen from where it's at in its location.
Yeah, I agree. For those of you, again, that are listening over the phone, the question was, or the point was made, rather, that if that free pass or that is on the, let's say, at the free spot, at the point, I call it, old school, and I want to leave the ball and go into a rotation on the weak side or whatever, I could toss the ball to my teammates, still not in play. I'm just moving the location of the free throw legally. It's still at or behind the point of the foul. That's allowed. Sure, why not? But we just make sure that everybody knows I'm still holding, I'm holding. That's not your free pass yet. Okay, now it is. Does that make sense, Stephen? Does that trouble you, Herb?
Sure.
When you stop play,
Most players aren't that smart. Don't worry about it.
when you stop play at center, that means stop play. So how can you move the ball right or left?
You're a center. I'm at the free spot. It's my free pass. I dump the ball off my teammate and I take off on some other offensive scheme that I want to incorporate on my 6-on-5. Nothing wrong with that. The ball's not in play yet. As long as the location.
The ball's still outside the foul.
It's okay. Not gonna do it.
I have a Dr. Carter question. So do you think, obviously the intent of this was to get rid of that quick pass to set
Correct,
after the exclusion away from the ball?
correct.
The rest of the play where there's advantage already, like in Gary's example, where they've already got 3 people down there, and that guy gets taken out, exclusion, boom, you're not gonna wait for them to all catch up. We're not gonna take advantage away. It's just that the main thing is that exclusion at center away from the ball, you're not gonna allow that quick so much. That's probably the gist of this whole thing, and the rest of it is probably pretty much the same.
I wouldn't even say probably. I would say that is the gist of the
Okay.
whole thing. Is to keep that exclusion at center, away from the ball, from being such a huge advantage.
There's only 2 people down there, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're allowed to quit if,
If the ball's there,
okay,
you're center forward, I'm
Got it.
center defender, I'm excluded, you put the ball in play.
okay.
And you can get it right back and shoot.
Right.
So impeding a driver without the ball, stopping play or?
Yes.
Yes,
Inside 5.
yes, without the ball. Okay.
Ball's outside.
Why is it just nobody team already there? Just we're stopping all of those in?
We're still, those of you that are looking at your computer and listening to us on the phone, we moved ahead, we'll back up. What else do we need to discuss here, so you're clear? I really don't think it's that difficult. It's designed primarily, I stopped short of saying exclusively for the foul at center away from the ball, to create a huge, huge advantage. Anywhere else? At the ball, make sure the proper player is excluded and play on. Robert?
So one way to think about this is that when we whistle an ordinary foul, we're restoring a lost passing opportunity, right? We talked about this for years. If you're calling exclusion, you're restoring a lost shooting opportunity. If you're calling a penalty, it's a lost goal scoring opportunity. So we're trying to make sure that the punishment fits the crime.
Correct.
Right in front of the cage, an exclusion becomes a 2-meter penalty shot. Slow it down a little bit, it becomes a shooting opportunity restored. So I think that's what we're basically saying is, think about what was intended by the rule, and then figure out how to apply this rule the way so that it gets the intent accomplished. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And again, for those of you that weren't in the room or aren't in the room, maybe you already left, we've taken a shooting opportunity at center perhaps and turned it into a scoring opportunity, and that was to be eliminated. So if you think of it in those terms that Dr. Core brought up, and hopefully he'll share some more information fresh out of the NC2A rules meeting with us as well.
I think it also ties into the fact that they've emphasized that they want referees calling ordinary fouls at the center position. So if you combine this with the emphasis on that, they kind of complement each other.
Right. Did you get that? The point that Stephen made was this sort of ties in with it's okay to call an ordinary foul at center to restore possession if warranted. Very often, I think we're coming up in that, or maybe that's in other material, but very often a referee will call nothing or exclusion at center. We preach and we preach and we preach patience in advantage situations. Well, maybe you've shown so much patience, and maybe you should have called an exclusion, and now I'm about ready to lose possession of the ball. It's okay to call an ordinary foul there to let me keep possession. Does that make sense? It used to be in the rule book a penalty, a foul for a coach or team official to prevent a probable goal, throw an extra player in, throw a chair in, kick a cone in, any number of things. All they did was add the word delay. And the only example that comes to mind that I think is pretty clear in our rules, if I'm the defensive coach, the ball was tipped out by my goalie, and I take my sweet time putting the corner throw ball in, I'm delaying the game. That should be a penalty foul. Makes sense? Don't overthink it. All they did was add the word delay the game, not just prevent a probable goal. Okay? Advantage, enhanced, like we referred to earlier. You can read the rule. The advantage rule is one of the crazy things that's unique to our sport, maybe a little bit of soccer, where the referee is flat out instructed to not call a foul if it's to the advantage of the defending team. Play on. It's just a reinforcement that all other things considered, the tie goes to the runner, the referee shall favor the offense, period. That's the point that Stephen made at center. It's okay to call an ordinary foul to help the offense maintain possession if warranted. If it's steal, bad pass, then there's no ordinary foul. But if I've got possession and I'm exercising patience as a referee to see what that player can do, oh, now they can't do anything because the defense is so heavy. If I'm not going to call an exclusion, at the very least I can call an ordinary foul to let them keep possession. That does not mean call an ordinary foul every time the ball gets in there. We know that ordinary foul at center just turns the center into a passer and kills any advantage of offense. Okay. Got to be able to balance that correctly. Right. Let's take a little break if we can, and then we'll talk about the points of emphasis. These are just the rules. Well, I won't take a break for just like 2 minutes, and those of you at home can get up and move around a little bit, and you can do that.